Joining us once again on the Rich Eisen Show is Michael McCann, legal analyst, SI.com. Counselor, thanks for calling in again. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me on, Rich.
So what's the next step, do you think, here? What happens here?
I think next step for Brady is to pursue an appeal. It's an internal mechanism where he'll petition the NFL for a hearing that will revisit and he hopes to revise the 4-game suspension. The key then will be who Roger Goodell picks to do the hearing. It could be Goodell. He could pick somebody on his staff. He could go outside the NFL like he did with Ray Rice and hire a former judge. In that case, it backfired because he hired former Judge Barbara Jones, who held against the NFL and for Ray Rice. So this puts Goodell now in a tough position. Donald Yee, Brady's agent, has made clear the person better be neutral, but Goodell doesn't actually have to do that. It's ultimately Goodell's decision.
And Harold Henderson is the one that is hearing Greg Hardy's appeal. Again, he worked in the league office for many years as a liaison between the league and many labor issues. He was there for much of the Tagliabue era as well. So what do you think the commissioner is going to do? Would he actually appoint himself for this, or because there's so much scrutiny and he handed the investigation over to Ted Wells that he is going to go completely independent and hire somebody else?
My guess is that he does not pick himself, but instead either pick somebody who he's familiar with and who I think he believes will likely favor the NFL, such as Harold Henderson, or he could do something more bold and pick somebody like a former federal judge who's now in practice and is able to serve as an arbitrator. I guess the question then is, how confident is Roger Goodell in these suspensions? If this goes to somebody like former Judge Jones and Brady's lawyers are able to say, there's no rhyme or reason to this punishment, there's no precedent for something like this, and therefore it's arbitrary, it would be a gamble for Goodell, because if he loses that, can you imagine the controversy and the criticism that he would receive for suspending Tom Brady and then having it overturned? My gut is that he goes with somebody who he's familiar with, a former employee, somebody who likely will be sympathetic to the NFL.
So if you are somebody that is on Brady's legal staff right now, what are they thinking as they huddle up right now about the future?
First step, get through the appeal, but while doing the appeal, preserve the opportunity for at least considering filing a lawsuit if the appeal fails. That has to remain on the table. I don't think they're going to dismiss that possibility, but they can't file a lawsuit until they exhaust their internal appeals, and that requires going through the traditional appeal process. So my gut is that they're huddling, they're thinking, let's make a case, but maybe save some of their best case for a potential lawsuit. Maybe they're not going to show every card during an internal appeal, especially if Goodell picks somebody to preside over the appeal that the Brady camp thinks they're not going to have a fair shake before. But if it's somebody like a former judge who has no ties to the NFL, they may really make a law-like case where they go line by line through the Wells report, where they bring in statements by maybe other quarterbacks who support Tom Brady. Maybe they bring in statements from scientists and physicists who say the science doesn't add up in the Wells report. And they also say much of what Brady told Ted Wells wasn't included in the report, if it's true what Donald Yee said. And I think Donald Yee, as part of this appeals process, will reveal his notes, what notes he took during the meetings between Brady and the investigators. I'm
with Sports Illustrated legal analyst Michael McCann here on the Rich Eisen Show. But that's the Wells report. The NFL, Troy Vincent's letter to Tom Brady was the fact he didn't hand his phone over. And of that, there's no dispute. He did not hand his phone over. And as we know, the commissioner handed his phone over to Director Mueller in the Mueller review of the Ray Rice case. And if the commissioner hands his phone over and Tom Brady doesn't hand his phone over, I mean, isn't that open and shut? That has nothing to do with the Wells report. How does Brady and his legal staff deal with that issue?
Well, I think they're two very different situations. Roger Goodell turned over his phone to somebody who the NFL was paying, Robert Mueller. That while that was a, quote, independent investigation, it was financed by the NFL. Different story with Tom Brady and Ted Wells, where he isn't paying Ted Wells. And secondly, I would say Tom Brady is a member of a union, and he has certain privacy protections that go along with that. Normally, it takes a subpoena to get somebody's private phone before it's turned over. And Roger Goodell's willingness to do it in the Robert Mueller situation, to me, isn't as big of a step, considering that the NFL is financing that investigation than it would be for Brady. We don't know what's on Brady's phone. Maybe there were things that were suspicious, but maybe there was personal information. And despite all of the assurances that he had that nothing would be leaked, that the NFL was only interested in relevant matters, he knows the NFL has had issues with leaks in the past. So I don't think it's unwarranted for Brady to have not shared his phone.
What is the one thing that the Brady legal staff and legal minds, Don Yee and whoever else that he's hiring to get girded up for this fight, what's the thing that concerns them most, that they think that will have the biggest trouble attacking most?
Yeah, I think, Rich, some of those text messages sent by Brady are going to be difficult to explain away. Although there's nothing in there that says, go deflate the footballs, a fair inference, a fair reading of those texts can certainly lead one to that conclusion. And they're going to have a really good argument that those text messages don't in any way suggest Brady knew about balls being deflated or wanted that to happen. It will take some talented lawyering. So I think those text messages are really going to be problematic for Brady.
2 questions left. Timetable it for me. How do you think this is going to play out on a timetable?
I think we'll probably find out who will hear the appeal by the end of the week. That's my guess. And then a hearing would be scheduled. They're not in a rush because obviously the season isn't going on right now, so there isn't that same urgency if Brady was suspended in the middle of the season. But my guess is that we'll have a hearing within a couple of weeks.
And then after that, would there be a lawsuit filed sometime? Let's just say the appeal doesn't go Brady's way. Do you think he files a lawsuit and gets some immediate relief so he can get on the field in time for week 1 of the season? Do you think that is something that might be looming on the horizon?
My instinct is that Brady won't sue. I could be wrong. I just feel as if he wants to play this out in the internal appeals process. To file a lawsuit, I think, really changes the dynamics. And if he files a lawsuit, he also may be compelled to turn over his phone, which he doesn't apparently want to do. So that's part of the pretrial discovery process. So, Rich, my gut is that he goes through the appeal. I think there's a good chance that the appeal, he's probably not going to win the appeal in the sense that the suspension will be overturned, but there's a good chance the suspension is reduced. If that's the outcome, then I think he just lives with it. I would be surprised if he sues, but if he does sue, it would be, like you said, after the decision on the appeal is rendered.
That was a follow-up question to my first question. So here is my last question for you, Michael McCann at McCann Sports Law. Is it true you're teaching a Deflategate course at the University of New Hampshire this fall? Is that actually true?
I am, Rich, and I appreciate you mentioning it. It's a sports law course for undergrads.
Okay.
One of the key topics will be Deflategate, and we're going to talk about all the legal issues that we just talked about in this conversation, Brady being a member of a union, issues of evidence and privacy. We'll talk about other sports law controversies. Should college athletes be paid? That's really a question about antitrust law and intellectual property law. In my mind, Rich, great way to teach the law is to teach it through sports because it captures the students' attention and they learn about the law in situations that they find interesting.
Can my colleague Chris Brockman take that course online if necessary? He's not enrolled at the school, but I think we need to learn him up on a few things here, including using that phrase. Can he take that? Can he take that online?
We're making steps towards making this class available online. That hasn't yet happened. I need to learn how to do an online class first.
Okay.
But once I do that, it's going to happen.
If you need any of my help with the syllabus, you just let me know. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's Michael McCann.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.